Okay, friends, so let's listen to Ivanna, and she's going to talk about a very interesting subject, dental health on the fasting lifestyle. Okay.
All right. Hi, guys. So a lot of people ask me about teeth, and it's a pretty serious problem that people encounter on a raw fruitarian lifestyle. So many people transition to this fruitarian or raw vegan lifestyle and find that their teeth begin to deteriorate. And of course, a lot of people blame this on the diet. They're saying that because the diet is deficient in nutrients, or that the sugar in the fruit itself is destructive to the teeth is the problem. But I say, that this is all baloney. The only thing that I would agree with to some extent is that, if you already have a weak structure, your teeth are already inherently weak, eating things that contain acids like some of the fruits will of course contribute to further deterioration of the enamel. The first time I encountered a serious problem with my teeth was during my first juice fast. And it started out probably around day 5, and it began as a sudden and extreme tooth sensitivity. And I would start to feel my teeth throbbing and pulsating in my mouth. And this was followed by an incredibly quick enamel deterioration. And when I say quick, I mean that I would literally watch my teeth melt away and degenerate in a matter of hours. So at breakfast, my teeth would look normal, but by lunch, I would look in the mirror and see significant chips and thinning in my enamel. And another thing I would also notice was the loss of volume in my teeth, meaning that they would start looking less bulky and more translucent. Now, to top it all off, my teeth would become so sensitive that I couldn't even take a toothbrush to them. Any contact with the toothbrush would just send searing pain through my nerves. And when this first began, I really didn't know what was happening. And because of that, I failed to take appropriate action, which ended up really costing me. And if I had, known then what I know now, I probably could have done a much better job of saving my teeth. And this destructive tooth process still keeps happening to me to this day. It's not constant. It sort of comes and goes in waves. There are times where my teeth are fine, and then all of a sudden this throbbing and sensitivity will return and is then followed by the thinning of the enamel and enamel deterioration. Now that I know what's going on, I recognize these signs right away and start running interference. So first I want to talk about why does this happen, the mechanism. The main reason people start to lose their teeth is not that the raw diet is somehow harmful or deficient in any way, but that it triggers the detoxification process, which in many ways is a process of stripping away and deconstruction. If you think of the word detox itself, detox, it means removal of toxins. So the only thing you're going to be losing during detox are toxic and harmful components, because the body never gets rid of healthy tissue. It only gets rid of what is damaged or inferior. And the extent of the so-called damage that you experience during detox will only show you how weak your system was to begin with. It's going to show you where specifically you had your weaknesses or problems. Rest assured that whatever the detox does not take from you, be it hair, teeth, nails, or whatever else, is what was structurally sound. But everything that you lose because it was basically crap to begin with. Even if on the surface, it may have looked okay. Like a lot of us look at our teeth and we think that before we had good teeth, there was nothing wrong with them. And all of a sudden we go on a raw diet and they start to fall apart. Well, this is deceptive. And I want to talk about why this is, and specifically as it relates to teeth. You see, detoxification process is essentially one of hydration. What do we mean by this? The body is made up of cells and two basic fluids that service these cells. You have blood and you have lymph. Your blood is what is often referred to as the kitchen of the body, whereas lymph is known as the bathroom of the body. Every single cell is like an autonomous country because it basically stands alone and is separated from all the other cells. Now, every cell is surrounded by a space that is known as the interstitial space. And it is through this interstitial space that the cell gets fed and cleaned. So the blood brings in oxygen and nutrition, and lymphatic fluid removes the waste. However, when the elimination pathways are blocked, this waste that is acidic in nature begins to accumulate around the cell and sits around those interstitial spaces while it's actually damaging the cell. In addition to this, when you are dealing with an acidic environment, things tend to agglomulate, meaning they coagulate, they get sticky. So this lymphatic fluid becomes stagnant and it's almost like becomes frozen and hardened in these interstitial spaces. When we start to eat raw diet brings in alkaline chemistry. And this alkaline chemistry begins to hydrate and break up the hardened lymphatic fluid that's been stagnating around the cells. And this process is incremental. And whereas we continue to bring in alkaline chemistry and the body breaks up the lymph a little bit at a time and then excretes it either through the skin or mucosa, through the kidneys or our bowels or catarrh. And catarrh is basically mucus-like accumulations in our lungs, in our nose, in our sinuses. And one of the ways we get rid of them is through coughing or, blowing our nose and stuff like that. To better understand this, you can think about a dirty oven. Like, let's say where, you were heating up frozen pizza. And when the cheese melts and drips all over the place, when combined with high heat, wherever it attaches to the surface of the oven, it sort of is baked into it. It's hardened, and it sticks to the surface. And if you ever had to deal with this problem in your life, then you know that when you want to clean the oven, it's not so easy and it takes some doing, especially if you didn't clean the mess up right away when it happened and you let it sit and you continue to use the oven over and over again, exposing that residue to more heat. So you know that if you were trying to clean it, it's not enough just to use water and a rag or a sponge. It's just not going to cut it. So what you do, you have to bring in some astringent chemical agent. And here in the US, we have this product called Easy Off. You basically spray it on the surface of your oven and you let it sit. So the reason you let it sit is that you need to give it time to soften and let this residue sort of break up a bit. And once it's loosened enough, then you can start to scrape it off and wipe it down. And so this is very much like what happens when you bring in astringent chemistry of the fruit into the body and how it acts upon the stagnant lymph. So in short, detoxification mobilizes this toxic buildup that we have around and sometimes inside our cells. And of course, it takes time to hydrate and break up sections of stagnant lymphatic waste. And the body can only do this in small increments. So let's say the body may get to work on a section of your liver, for example, and it will focus on this one small section at a time by breaking up some of the toxic buildup, and once it sort of loosens it enough, it removes it. And when this happens, we often experience unpleasant symptoms stemming from this release of toxins. What we're feeling is the impact of the toxic material that we've been holding. In a sense, it's as if you were getting, to taste that burnt cheese that you scraped off the bottom of the oven that we talked about. I like to give the analogy of an ice cube in a glass of water. Imagine that you have a glass of clean water with an ice cube floating in it, but this ice cube is made of sewage, like sewer water. Now, as long as that ice cube remains frozen, the contamination to the surrounding water is going to be limited. And if you drink it, you'll be vaguely aware, that something is afoul in terms of smell and taste, but it will be tolerable. But what happens if you melt that ice cube? Well, that sewage is going to mix with the rest of the water in the glass. And if you take a sip of that water, you're going to taste every bit of that sludge. And so this is very similar to what happens during detox. We break up that stagnant lymph and feel or taste the negative effects of it as it makes its way out of our system. So this should give you an idea of how detoxification occurs and how it ebbs and flows, where there are periods when it seems that nothing is happening, and this is during the hydrating stage, right, where the alkaline chemistry is just basically trying to soften the lymph. And then we experience the negative effects of the detox during the mobilization and removal stage. So it's not that detox is making you sick, it's rather that the toxic buildup that you have been storing in your system is making you sick. And unfortunately, the only way to get that toxic crap out of our body is by breaking it up first, just like melting that sewer water ice cube. And as the garbage then exits the body, it may create some very unpleasant sensations and ramifications. And yes, in some instances, it can even cause some additional damage. Let's talk about how this impacts the teeth specifically. As you may know, different chemicals have affinity for different tissues. and there are certain chemicals that like to settle in teeth, gums, and bones. Incidentally, many of these chemicals, though not all of them, happen to be heavy metals or metalloids. Some of the chemicals that can negatively impact the mouth, like iodine, iron, and phosphorus, are compounds that our body actually needs and uses when they're present in appropriate quantities and forms, and when the body is actually able to utilize them properly. Take iodine, for example. Iodine is necessary for proper thyroid function. And of course, normal thyroid function includes production of calcitonin, which is a hormone that is needed for calcium utilization. But if you have too much inorganic iodine that the body cannot metabolize, it will get lodged into tissues and cause damage. So not only does this excess iodine disrupt your ability to utilize calcium and therefore weakens your teeth by doing so, but it also irritates and inflames the gum tissue. Then if, let's say, you have phosphorus, which is a mineral that is actually a part of the bone and tooth matrix, but when it's out of balance, it will cause ulceration of the gums and even necrosis of the jaw. Mercury toxicity leads to tender, swollen gums. It will give you loose teeth. It can also cause a congenital birth defect known as Hutchinson's teeth, which basically makes the teeth mal-shaped and malformed. And then another chemical or metal is iron. And once again, we do need iron for many functions in our body, but when we are not utilizing it and we're taking in irons through, supplements into our body, we accumulate it, and then we have iron toxicity. And iron toxicity is also known to cause tooth decay. If you ever take over-the-counter medication, specifically Pepto-Bismol, the main ingredient of Pepto-Bismol is bismuth. And bismuth will also accumulate in the gum tissue, and you will be actually able to see it as a blue line in your gums. Now, all of these chemicals that can be stored in the tissues of the mouth and teeth are excreted through the body when we get rid of them through the mucosa. And what is your whole mouth lined with? Mucous membranes. I mean, when you were going through detox, have you ever tasted metals in your mouth? Or sometimes I will taste this very strong chemical taste, like medications. It reminds me of that smell that when you walk into the pharmacy and that really strong chemical smell of medicaments hits you. And this is what I would taste in my mouth from time to time. So this happens when the body is detoxing these chemicals out. And as I already mentioned, these chemicals are corrosive and damaging to our teeth and gums. So when you excrete them through the mucosa and into your mouth, they're going to be mixing with your saliva and have direct contact with teeth, thus degrading them and causing, your enamel to deteriorate. And they will also cause you issues with your gum tissues. So I want to reiterate that most of these chemicals, including heavy metals, are excreted from the body through the skin and mucosa, not your bowels. Now, of course, some metals that are ingested, like mercury from the fish or aluminum that's seeped into your food from foil or metal cans, that metal load, of course, will be removed through the bowels. But whatever is stored and lodged in your bone matrix or your nerve cells isn't going to take a cab to your GI tract where you can bind it with zeolite or chlorella or bentonite clay. It's going to be removed through the mucous membranes. So when you detox, you will unavoidably be releasing these toxic chemicals into your mouth, where they're going to affect your teeth on many different levels, and they're going to create some damage. But if this were not enough, there's even more to the toxicity of the mouth. Human teeth are made up of a specific type of calcium called hydroxyapatite. And hydroxyapatite, of course, is made up of a specific ratio of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. However, certain heavy metals compete with these minerals that make up the hydroxyapatite crystals. This means that these metals can actually insert themselves into the hydroxyapatite matrix and take place of certain elements that make up the hydroxyapatite matrix, and they infiltrate the structure like imposters. So now, instead of being made up of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus, parts of your teeth are actually made up of metals like arsenic, aluminum, lead, and iron. Aluminum likes to insert itself into the bone matrix by decreasing all three, calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus levels. Now, both aluminum and iron can easily take place of calcium in hydroxyapatite crystals because they're similar in structure. And then there's lead, which likes to target bone matrix due to its ability to substitute other minerals like calcium, magnesium, and iron. And by the way, if you have lead deposits in your mouth, you'll know this because you will have that telltale bluish tint in your gums. So getting back to this infiltration of heavy metals into your tooth and bone matrix. To better understand what this means, think about your tooth as a house that's built from brick and mortar. So to the naked eye, it may look like a solid, sturdy structure that's made up of brick. And on the surface, it may even look like a really nice house. But if you start to peel off the paint and examine it really close, you're going to start to see that some sections of the wall are not actually all brick, but they have some other material in it that's only shaped to look like brick. For the sake of a useful analogy, let's say that this material is asbestos mixed with some binding agent and is then made into a shape of a brick. So the walls of your house, which you thought were 100% brick and mortar, are actually only about 72% or maybe 70% brick. And the rest of it is actually made of this unsuitable toxic material that's spread out and interspersed throughout the entire structure of the house. And it's mixed in with the rest of the brick, which makes it not only less stable, but actually quite dangerous to live in because of its toxic effects. Of course, the body always wants to get rid of it to create a healthier environment. And when we give it the opportunity to detox, it begins to dislodge and push out this toxic material out, which of course is a good thing. But what happens to the structure of your house when you start to kick out these non-brick parts out of the wall? Well, you're going to be left with a bunch of holes. And all of a sudden, what seemed to be a really solid structure is no more. And so this is another thing that happens during detox. You begin to lose those parts of the tooth structure that have been infiltrated by toxic heavy metals that have embedded themselves into the tooth matrix, basically pretending to be calcium, magnesium, or phosphorus. So in addition to this, heavy metals also stunt the body's ability to remineralize teeth and bone. For example, lead poisoning affects mineral metabolism of calcium and phosphorus by inhibiting a specific kidney enzyme which is required for the synthesis of vitamin D. And as a result, you get hypocalcemia, which is low calcium, and you have also low phosphorus. And you also have a decreased ability to absorb calcium through the intestinal wall because of this action. Now, another metal that causes a problem here is chromium, because chromium intoxication will actually stunt mandibular growth. So this is the growth of your jawbone, and prevent tooth eruption. Another metal, cadmium, decreases volume and mineralization as well. Iron toxicity will actually kill off osteoblasts. And osteoblasts are your stem cells that become bone and tooth cells. So iron is going to sort of speed up the death of these osteoblasts and will also inhibit the growth of hydroxyapatite crystals and alter their crystallinity. And of course, as I said, aluminum likes to insert itself everywhere and will also inhibit the remineralization process. So if you have a heavy metal load in your body, you're going to be losing your teeth when you start to detox them. And then you will also have a harder time remineralizing your teeth, even if you don't have issues with your glands, like your thyroid, parathyroid, or pituitary, which are the glands that are involved in proper utilization of calcium. So you're going to have a real problem on your detox. So as you can see here, we have really a three-pronged problem. One is that you are excreting through your mouth mucosa chemicals that are already extremely corrosive and damaging to your teeth, like mercury, iodine, iron, phosphorus, etc. Second is that you're also detoxing and excreting chemicals that had been interwoven into the structural matrix of the tooth enamel itself. And when you do this, you're obviously going to lose enamel or even parts of the tooth. And third issue is that you are then unable to remineralize the teeth due to heavy metal interference with the process, or because you have an inherent glandular weakness. So what do we do? First and foremost, I tell people is to not freak out. You know, we have this impulse, we see damage in our teeth, and this happened to me where, you know, it happened to the frontal surface of my tooth where a hole literally opened up and it turned brown. And of course, your first impulse is to run to the dentist and have it fixed. But I will tell you that 90% of these issues can actually be reversed and fixed. So I tell people when something like this happens, don't freak out and run to the dentist, because once you let the dentist, you know, drill, file, and fill, there's just no path to reverse that, right? So when that happens, know that there are things you can do. First thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to change how you eat, your eating habits. When you have this type of a situation with your teeth, you have inherent weakness, you're detoxing a lot of metals, you cannot graze. You know, a lot of people like to go throughout the day and pick, you know, a grape here, a pear there, an apple there, and just eat throughout the day. When you have tooth problems like these, you cannot do that. All right, you're going to have to be eating at specific meal times. You're going to have 3 meals a day, because after each meal, you're going to have the opportunity to, you know, to brush your teeth, to clean your teeth, make sure there is no acidic residue from the fruit in your mouth that can contribute and further deteriorate your enamel. Second thing I want to mention is the toothpaste that a lot of people use. Now, I don't care if it's a healthy type toothpaste. I don't care what the label says. Any toothpaste you're going to use is going to have glycerin in it. And glycerin, when you brush it into your teeth, creates a film over your teeth that actually prevents you from being able to remineralize your teeth through your saliva. And even after you discontinue the use of toothpaste, it takes about 2 weeks for this film to completely be stripped away and gone. So I always tell people, throw away your toothpaste. Stop using toothpaste. Personally, I make my own tooth powder. It's very inexpensive. It's super easy. The one that I make has literally only 3 ingredients in it, which is baking soda, calcium bentonite clay, and calcium carbonate powder. You mix it all together and you use it dry. You put a little bit on your toothbrush and you brush it. Some people like to add activated charcoal to their toothpaste, but I found it to be a little too corrosive. And if you have weak enamel, it can actually damage your enamel. So I no longer add it to my tooth powder. You may add Theobromine, which is an extract from cacao plant. It has been shown to remineralize teeth, and I use it from time to time, but usually when you buy the granules, in my opinion, are a little too large. So I don't feel that they mix well with the rest of the powder, and that the Theobromine powder is fine enough to be able to get into those little cracks that you have in your teeth. Another thing I like to do is oil pulling. And oil pulling and additional oil applications is really going to save your teeth. It's been a lifesaver for me. If some of you don't know what oil pulling is, it's when you take an oil into your mouth and then you swish it through your mouth, pulling it through your teeth. So the mixture I use to oil pull is, I use coconut oil, and I add a few drops of certain essential oils to it, such as neem, oregano, cinnamon, and clove. And then I will also add a little bit of turmeric powder with barley grass juice powder. And then you mix it all in your mouth and you pull it and you swish it in your mouth for about 20 minutes. This is great to do first thing when you wake up, before you eat or drink anything. Now, what this does is a few different things. So if you have a lot of chemical residue that's being loosened up in your mouth and is going to come out through your mucosa, oil pulling through mechanical action actually removes it, pulls it out of your tissues, trapping these toxic chemicals in the oil solution itself, right? So the chemicals that would normally take a few hours to come out of your teeth and would mix with your saliva and really be damaging to your enamel, you remove them in one sitting by oil pulling. And then you also add these essential oils, which are antifungal and antibacterial. And oil, of course, is also an anti-acid. So you alkalize the mouth, you kill the bacteria and fungus that may be detrimental to your teeth, and you also unload some of the toxic burden that would take time to sort of be excreted through your mucous membranes. And this alone is gonna really help you to mitigate some of the damage that would otherwise occur if you did nothing while detoxing. Now, the reason I add turmeric and barley grass juice powder is that both of these herbs are loaded with calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. So they have the minerals that your body needs to absorb into its tissues to remineralize. And especially the juice powder, which already has the fiber removed from it, it's very easy for the enzymes in your saliva to actually digest it and process it and utilize it. So it's really good for people who have loose teeth. They find that it strengthens their teeth, and turmeric will also whiten your teeth. The only warning I want to give you is that when you use turmeric, it stains everything. So if you have like marble counters, or be careful in terms of your clothing or it getting on your clothing or your counters, because it's, once you stain it with it, it's impossible to get out. And I recommend that you do oil pulling a minimum of twice a day. If you can do 3 times, even better. So you wake up, you do the oil pulling, you sort of unload all of that lymph that's been loosened up during the night, because when we sleep, the body works extra hard on cleaning itself. So now you get that out of the way. And then you can rinse your mouth, you can brush your teeth with your tooth powder, and then you can eat or drink. If you're drinking juices, please use a straw. Once again, you don't want to add more acidic residue or acidic sort of hit to your teeth, because when your teeth are already weak, that's going to just make it even worse. And then you would also oil pull at the end of the day before you go to sleep. If you can fit one in the middle of the day, it'd be great. So every time you eat, you would then brush your teeth, and I also then apply an oil mixture to my gums and teeth, and I will apply it throughout the day for the same reason that we oil pull. And so I prepared this mixture, and as the base, I use ozonated coconut oil, and you can buy this on Amazon. And to this ozonated coconut oil, I will add drops of neem oil, oregano, cinnamon, clove. Helichrysum is another good oil that's anti-inflammatory, and it's good for tissue healing. And I will mix it really well, and I, keep it in a little jar, and I take it with me everywhere. So when you apply that, a thin layer of it, you can use a Q-tip, and you apply it to your teeth as well as your gum. And when you use a Q-tip, like, try to really get under the gum line with it. So once again, the oil is going to alkalize the mouth. It's going to destroy any harmful bacteria or fungus. But what it also does when you apply a layer of it to your tooth enamel is it creates a buffer because of the viscosity and the texture of the oil as compared to saliva. Whatever comes in through saliva, it will not be able to penetrate that layer of oil. It's like when you try to mix oil and water, they don't mix, right? And this is why I recommend that you apply a thin layer of oil to the teeth, because it will, for at least a time, create a temporary buffer between the tooth enamel and whatever is being released into the saliva. And I like to do this throughout the days. This is very good if you're at work, or if you are just out and going about. You just take a Q-tip, apply it, and you're ready to go. Then there's the component of remineralization, and what we can take internally, what we can ingest to give our body the building blocks to sort of rebuild this lost enamel structure. Now, I never recommend taking calcium supplements or magnesium supplements, nothing that is synthetic, isolated chemistry. The body doesn't know what to do with it, one. It's not readily absorbable. And also, if you think about the structure of your bone or your tooth, is that it has specific ratios of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. So if you're starting to take now calcium, you're displacing some of the magnesium or phosphorus. And you don't want that, because that also creates a weakness in the structure of the tooth or bone. So you always want to consume things that are natural, that are plant-based, because those contain the right combinations of these minerals, and the body knows how to use them and synthesize them to make, bone and tooth. So there are a lot of herbs that you can take that are really, really good for calcium and for building. Some of them are comfrey, horsetail, black walnut leaf. Like I said, turmeric has lots of calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus in it. Barley grass juice is excellent. Alfalfa leaf juice. Dandelion root is another one. Anything that has silica in it, your liver will make into calcium. Now, there are certain things that I have used and I have recommended that are not, part of a diet. They're supplements. And I know there are purists out there that reject this idea. But when you are in an extreme type of situation, sometimes you have to do things that maybe you normally would not do. Now, I said that I never supplement calcium or magnesium, but there are certain things that I do supplement, and I have supplemented in the past, like vitamin D. This is especially useful for people who live in northern climates and maybe don't get enough sun exposure. So there are vegan forms of vitamin D that are derived from lichen, which is basically a moss that grows on the bark of the trees. So personally, I don't see an issue with supplementing vitamin D. Vitamin D is necessary for calcium absorption in the gut. Another compound is vitamin K2. So both vitamin D and K2 are necessary for proper absorption and utilization of calcium. I use a brand called Relentless Improvement for vitamin K2, and this is extracted from jasmine and geranium. So this is a plant-based, again, compound that is necessary for calcium utilization. So while I would not recommend taking calcium or magnesium or zinc or selenium, I don't mind telling people to take vitamin D and vitamin K to improve their absorption and utilization of calcium. Now, another thing you have to look at when it comes to calcium utilization and your body's ability to make calcium is the health of your glands, and specifically your thyroid and parathyroid glands. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but your thyroid makes a hormone called calcitonin, and parathyroid makes parathormone. So both of these are necessary for proper calcium utilization. Now, if you have a weakness in one or both of these glands, your ability to utilize calcium is going to be compromised. And it's not going to matter at all what you take in, what you ingest. You can take tons of calcium, you can take all the, you can eat all the plants and herbs that are rich in calcium, and it's not going to make one lick of a difference if you do not have glands that are utilizing these. And then what happens, you start to get deposits of calcium in your kidneys, outside of your blood vessels, leading to bone spurs and calcifications. So one way to know if you have an issue with these glands is to use iridology, because there we get a really clear picture by looking through the iris whether or not we have an issue in one of these glands. And then we need to support these glands with herbs and sometimes even glandular products. Now, glandular products are not vegan. These are animal products. And even though I do not consume animal products, I don't eat meat or fish, I do sometimes resort to taking glandular products. So this may not be suitable for everyone watching this podcast, because a lot of people are very strict vegans, ethical vegans, and they will reject the use of glandular products. The problem with the parathyroid gland is that we don't know what specific herbs improve it. So there's not a specific herb or plant I can recommend to anyone to take for parathyroid gland. But we do know that taking parathyroid glandular, which is a parathyroid gland extracted from a healthy animal that is then freeze-dried and desiccated, taking that actually kicks up your natural parathyroid function. So this is something that you're going to have to consider and make a choice for yourself whether or not you want to use it. Now, sometimes the issue is not with the parathyroid or thyroid themselves. They may actually be okay, but you may have a compromised pituitary gland, because your pituitary gland is like the government, and it actually governs the function of both the thyroid and parathyroid. So your thyroid and parathyroid may be okay, but because you have a faulty pituitary, it's not signaling properly to the other two glands. And so once again, you're not able to utilize calcium. And once again, the only way to know whether the problem is with your thyroid, parathyroid, pituitary, or all three is to really look at your eyes. And you can pull, you can pull charts online, iridology charts, and see what they mean, and look in your eyes and see if you have this weakness or not. Now, if you're open to taking any animal products, there is a supplement that I use that is called Bone Active, and it's by North American Herb and Spice. So what it contains is a blend of sage, rosemary, and oregano, which are rich in certain trace minerals that are necessary for calcium utilization. But its main ingredient is calcium hydroxyapatite, which is the calcium that makes up our bones and tissues and teeth, sorry. But this calcium hydroxyapatite that's in this supplement is derived from raw bone. So this is an actual animal extraction. So once again, if you are a strict vegan, this is not something you would use, but if you don't mind taking it, that you will find that it is very, very useful and really improves your ability to increase the bone density and repair the enamel of your teeth. So I don't know if you guys have any questions about what I just discussed.
Please unmute yourself if you have questions.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
Could you repeat what's the problem with the toothpaste? Why shouldn't we use toothpaste? Regular toothpaste?
Toothpaste, all toothpaste is going to have glycerin in it as an ingredient. That's what makes it that pasty, that gives it that pasty consistency, right? That's what holds all of its ingredients together. But that glycerin, when you brush it into your teeth, it creates a thick film over your teeth that cannot be penetrated by the minerals. So you actually are losing the ability to remineralize your enamel through your saliva, because that's how we remineralize our teeth, through our saliva. So you're actually creating a barrier over your teeth that is detrimental and disrupts your ability to harden your enamel.
Every toothpaste, doesn't matter which.
Correct. I don't care how healthy it claims to be. The fact that it's a paste means that it's going to have glycerin in it.
Could you give us the at the end of the program, write down all the ingredients for making all these things that instead of toothpaste?
Sure, I can send them to Arik and he can include them underneath the video.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I didn't manage to write all the ingredients.
You know, another thing I do is, and this is very easy, making a solution from calcium carbonate and some of the bentonite clay, and I use calcium bentonite clay. So it dissolves in water really well, and then you take it into your mouth, and then you just swish it around for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you spit it out. So this does two things, because calcium bentonite clay, obviously it's rich in calcium, and it together with calcium carbonate powder helps to harden the enamel and fill in those microfractures. But having the clay in it, the clay will pull out any acidic residues, any toxic residues, and will bind them to itself so that you don't get them reabsorbed into your mucosa, into your teeth, and so on. So it does double duty. It pulls some of the stuff toxic, some of the stuff out of your mouth. And then it helps you to remineralize your teeth as well. So this is something you can do. And of course, bentonite clay is also antibacterial, so it kills bacteria. And I would do this a lot, especially when my teeth get so sensitive that I can't brush them, that I would just do this, and then I use my finger to sort of brush it into my teeth, because the sensitivity sometimes is really unbearable, and it's impossible to brush my teeth when it gets like that.
You sound like a doctor. You've got so much knowledge.
Well, I just have experience. This is something I've been dealing with for a few years, and I've tried a lot of different things. And I wish I had known some of these things sooner, because I could have saved myself a lot of pain and, you know, suffering, and I would have saved my teeth. Another thing I want to offer you is a different type of aid. And I mentioned this in the previous webinar when I talked about the energetic art. And, you know, I talked about Brian DeFlores and how he makes these medical templates that are basically organized vibrations specifically geared at specific conditions. So he has specific templates for teeth, tooth regeneration. And you would use these in conjunction with his universal medical template, because this directly energetically impacts the teeth. So this is another thing to help you while you're working on the physical aspect. You're also working on the energetic aspects, because, and I mentioned this before in the other webinar, you have the physical structure, but underneath it or beyond it is the energetic structure that actually gives rise to the physicalized counterpart, right? So you want to be able to affect both, because imbalances in your energetic structure are going to translate into physical imbalances. So you want to get that matrix, that template organized properly, while you're also working on the physical aspect.
Thank you.
Sure.
Ivanna, so I have a few questions. The first one is about the tongue as a detox organ. Like what, when we fast and we see this white, thick coating, what does it exactly signify? And yeah, and then there is also this tongue cleaner, like they use in yoga and Ayurveda. So how important it is to use it in when
so the tongue is a part of your digestive tract. It's an extension of, this is where it begins and it ends all the way at the other end, right? So when you start to see coating on the tongue, what it does, it tells you the level of lymphatic stagnation in all of your digestive tract. And of course, different colors signify different things. So when you have a white coating, it tells you that you have an acute lymphatic stagnation. So you're in a stage of acute lymphatic stagnation. Now, and it starts to show up as yellow or green, you're in a subacute stage of lymphatic stagnation. And it starts to show up as brown, now you're in chronic stages. So that color of your tongue tells you what degree of stagnation you have in your GI tract, in your colon, okay? And it comes out because when we sleep, your body still produces waste. So that coating is there as a result of that lymph still coming up. So when you scrape your tongue, you're just scraping whatever has been released by your body. Does it affect the rest of it? No. So it's more of an indicator. The more you clean up your GI tract, the more you start to see your tongue clearing up and taking on that nice pink color.
So ideally there should be no coating after sleep or throughout the day. That would be the ideal picture.
Correct. Or it should be minimal, because even if you detox, you understand, even if you're on a really good diet, you still create some acidic acidic waste that is going to be excreted. And this is what it is. It's just lymph coming through, but the thickness of it, the consistency of it is going to be different.
Okay, great. And my next question is whether you would recommend using tea tree oil, because it's a strong antibacterial oil. For example, in oil pulling, mixing, because
Yes.
in oil pulling.
Peppermint, tea tree, there's so many great, wonderful oils, and you can play around with this. The one oil that I would not go without is neem. Neem is extremely powerful for teeth. You know, I have an Indian friend who told me that in the old days, before the, you know, the age of toothpaste and you know, toothbrush, Indian people would just break off a branch of neem tree and would chew on it, and this would clean their teeth, would keep them strong and white. So neem oil, is vile tasting as it is one of the most important oils that I would add to both oil pulling and the oil mixture that you're going to apply to your teeth, because that is going to save your teeth. But other oils you can play around with, because there's so many great ones. Like rosemary has actually been shown to help with recalcifications. So just too many, and you can really, rose otto is another one. There are so many things you can do, but some of the basics that I like to have would be neem, would be clove, which is really indicated for teeth, and cinnamon, right? And then the rest you can sort of mix and match, add, subtract, do whatever you want.
Okay. And I also wanted to ask about the products. There are products that let out this stream of water. Products that you, let's say, connect to your tap, or just you fill with water and
like a floss.
Yeah, like a water floss. So how effective are they, and would you recommend them?
Well, they're effective at removing, it's like flossing, it's like a water pick, just removing the you know, residues or whatever food was left over. You can use it, there's no harm in it, but it's not going to really, you know, it's going to give you a gum massage. It can, the electric ones, which is good, blood supply is great, but is it going to kill bacteria? No. Is it going to prevent these toxic residues that you're going to be continuously releasing through your mouth from affecting your teeth? No. So it's good for certain things. Certainly you can use it, but is it enough? No, it's not.
Okay. Yeah, that's very good. Good answer. And also about receding gums, if they can be regenerated, if you have, if you know from your own experience or experience of people you encountered.
Yes.
Receding gums, and also bones.
Well, what is the receding gum? We get receding gums because we're losing bone mass, right? And this is, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, it skipped my mind, but the most amazing thing you can do for your teeth for regeneration is dry fasting. Nothing beats it for receding gums, bone regrowth, and enamel regeneration. Dry fasting is the king. Why? Because of autophagy. Now, do you get autophagy on water fasting? Sure, but it's going to take you 3 days of being on water to get there, versus 1 day or even less if you're really cleaned up on the inside to trigger autophagy on dry fasting. And autophagy is such an amazing and elegant process of how the body deals with degeneration in itself, that it's really poetic. I mean, the body creates an envelope, right, where it's this protective membrane, where the parts of the cell that have been damaged or you know, somehow mutated are going to be put in, and then the body will release its own enzymes to break them down, and there's no waste product, because whatever is bad and unusable, the body will consume, and whatever is left over, which can be reused, the body will actually recycle and use it to rebuild new structures. So it's the difference, you know, when you, and this is, people tell me this all the time. When I was doing Master Fast, which utilizes dry fasting heavily most of the day, they say, my teeth were great. There was no issues. Everything was healed up. I go back to eating fruit. I am losing my teeth. This is why. And when I come out of a dry fast, my teeth, I actually, the last one I did, I actually got growth on my lower jaw. I got growth of bone, where I had some teeth that were so, my gums were receding that I could really see almost all the way down into my freaking jaw, the tooth going in. I actually got growth in my jaw. So I recommend dry fasting is the best thing you can do for your teeth, really. If you have problems, if you can implement even parts of the Master Fast system where you dry fast for at least 20 hours a day, you're going to see tremendous changes in your teeth.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
And because in dry fasting, you don't have any byproducts that are released into the system. You can think of the difference, you know, I watch this sometimes in movies where when they cleaning the floor, they're throwing water on the floor and then they use the mop to sort of spread it around to clean it. And it drives me crazy. I'm like, you're getting all the dirt everywhere, right? So this is like normal detox versus dry fasting detox, where it's like you have a problem area that's dirty. You put a tent over it, you enclose it completely, right? You clean it up, you fill everything that was taken out, you fix it, and then you remove the tent and everything looks brand new. This is the difference between detox on fruit and detox while dry fasting. Because during autophagy, you actually save and prevent the untimely destruction of stem cells. And once you have cleaned everything up, the body floods the system with stem cells to repair the damage, which doesn't happen in that order or that quickly in regular detox on fruit or even water detox, water fasting.
Amazing. Amazing. And my last question is, have you heard, I heard about some instances of people who actually regrew their missing teeth. At least that's what people say. So have you, other than hearing from the internet, from your own experience or from the people who you knew, have you encountered anything like that?
I know one person. Now, she did not regrow her teeth, but she has a third set of teeth. You know, I don't know if you ever saw pictures of x-rays of children, because they have their baby teeth. And if you x-ray their jaw, you see that their permanent teeth are stacked right above the baby teeth. So that when the baby teeth comes out, then the permanent teeth drop. This woman had 3 sets of teeth, where she now has, on top of her permanent teeth, she has another row of teeth that if she loses any of her teeth, she is going to have a tooth replaced. And her dentist actually suggested that she has them removed. And I said, you are insane. I said, you are 1 in a million. I mean, how many people can say that they have an extra set of teeth waiting for them in case they lose whatever they have now? So I think a lot of this has to do with genetics. Like this woman, she has it built in. And maybe people who did regrow their teeth had a similar situation. I believe that to be able to regrow teeth, you have to turn on certain genes that we have in our DNA that have been turned off. And that will require such an incredible cleansing and rebuilding and regenerating of the body that I don't know how long that would take to get there. I mean, right now we have genes that are turned off that would enable us to regrow limbs. Like if you lost an arm, you have genes already programmed in your code that make it possible for you to grow them back. But for those genes to be turned on, you have to clean out the body to such an extent and also raise your vibrational frequency of your energetic body for that to be possible. So I don't know how likely it would be for a normal human being like you and I to do that, unless you're a freak of nature like this friend of mine who was born with an extra set of teeth.
How can you check that? Can you see it on the
You can
X-ray?
take it, yeah, it shows up on an X-ray. Yes.
I see. Okay, friends, does anyone
I know I don't have them because I've had my X-rays done in the dentist, and this is all I got.
Okay, friends, does anyone have any more questions?
Just if you could give us the recipes for all these substitute toothpaste. And
Very simple. 3 ingredients. Calcium carbonate powder. You can buy it in bulk on Amazon. Very cheap. Calcium carbonate, make sure it's pure, does not have additives or any other chemicals in it.
Okay.
Bentonite clay, and I use this one. It's by Aspen Naturals, and I like it because this is calcium montmorillonite clay, so it also has a higher content of calcium in it. And baking soda, good old baking soda, make sure it's aluminum free. So these 3 ingredients, you mix them together in equal parts and you got yourself a tooth powder.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Oh, Ivanna, actually, I remember one more question that I wanted to ask about drinking juices with a straw.
Yeah.
So if you drink juices with a straw, it means you, in order for the juice not to touch your teeth, you actually have to swallow it right away. But on the other hand, there is this additional value, let's say, of chewing your liquids and touching with your mouth, with your tongue and stuff like that. So how would you solve this dilemma?
You don't. You're going to have to choose. Certain juices are alkaline, like celery juice or your vegetable juices. You can do that with. But if you are doing fruit juices, then I would not recommend that. Now, you know, what you can do afterwards, if you want to chew your juices, what you do is you make a solution with some baking soda in water, and you just swish it in your mouth to alkalize the mouth afterwards. You know, you can do that, but unfortunately, you really can't reconcile the two.
I see. What about carrot juice? What kind of nature does it have? Is it more acidic or more alkaline?
No, it's pretty alkaline because it's really starchy.
Yeah.
Now, a really good root vegetable to juice that is high in calcium and magnesium and all the other stuff is rutabaga. You can, and I used to do this, and I used to get a bunch of rutabagas and juice them with, you know, with celery and other things. And though that's good, that you can swish actually in your mouth because it will help with calcification of the teeth. So there are a lot of vegetables that have calcium, magnesium in them, and you can do that. The only thing I would warn is about fruit juices and especially citruses. You know, I cannot eat anything that has lemon in it. Adding something lemon into it within a couple of days, my teeth start to ache because I don't have the strong teeth some people do. So, and you're gonna see this, so you can sort of figure out, you know, and moderate. I can do a little bit of this, but not that. You know, you'll have to see what works for you.
Yeah, but if I do love to drink juice like without straw, then swishing baking soda mixed with water would neutralize it.
Will alkalize it. Yes, will neutralize the acid. Yes.
Neutralize the acid. That's what I meant. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, guys. Does anyone have any more questions? Because if not, we're going to finish.
Somebody's talking, but I think they're muted.
So. Okay, so please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I just have one question. You mentioned that, like, if the dentist already went in and, you know, did his thing, like in my case, you know, I went to the dentist till I was 16 because it was paid for here in Canada, but then, you know, never went back till my mid to later 20s, and then it was just straight dentist for 3 years. Just drill filling. Had a couple root canals, probably had like 3 fillings, and I have 2 crown teeth now. So you say like if they already drilled and filled, likely not, gonna grow that back, I guess.
Anything is possible, but the way
Yeah.
I think it would happen is that the body would get rid of the damaged tooth and then grow a new one rather than try. You understand? Once that you take off too much, I don't think that there's going back.
Yeah. Okay.
Ivanna,
I'll just do my best to keep my teeth clean from here out. What I have left.
We still have you.
yeah,
Yeah.
that kind of talks really inspires to do that. Yeah.
Yes.
So shows the necessity of doing it. Ivanna, I wanted to ask you, because you also deal with energy healing and holistic, all these holistic things. In terms of energy flow, the tooth implants, what kind of impact do they have on the general energy flow of the body?
It does impact the energy a bit, but you see, and I talked about this with somebody who had implants, and this is also a person who's very much aware of the energy. And what she said was that the energetic disruption that the faulty tooth created was so much worse than what is happening now. It actually, so the implant became an energetic improvement over the energetic disarray that was created by a tooth that was deteriorating and was dying, basically.
Yes.
So is it ideal? No, because everything is energy, and that metal has energy. They use titanium, and it does have some metal blowback on the body. But if you're already in a situation where you have decay, that decay is also has energetic implications for your energy system. You have to understand. So from her point of view, she said that the implant was an improvement energetically, and the energy was flowing better now that she got rid of the decaying tooth that was dying there.
Yeah, it makes sense. Also, there is this material called zirconia, I think, right? Which is claimed to be pretty much very adjustable to the body. So it does not contain metal. It's kind of ceramics material, I guess.
I don't know too much about it. I really can't speak to it.
I understand. Okay, so I think we are going to wrap it up. And thank you very much, Ivanna.
Thank you for having me.
It was really, really enlightening, just speechless. Yeah, and I think that everyone who was present benefited from it, and many more people will benefit from it who are watching, who are going to watch it on YouTube. So thank you very much. And we have spoken with Ivanna about our further projects. Maybe we will organize more webinars like that about other subjects.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ivanna.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.